Okay. All right. Well, we do have time to jump to my soup if there aren't any more questions for Billy. And thank you again. You just do such a good job. I appreciate your jumping in and having those ready. So I will say, if anybody else that's listening has a trip that they've taken that would you think maybe some other members might like to take a similar one, or that would show fun things to do in an area, please let me know. I can help you organize them or put them in a PowerPoint or something so it'll work with the screen share. So.
Or if you want to invite everyone to your hometown, just take pictures of your hometown and we'll know where to stay.
That too. That's a great idea. Okay, well then I need to do the screen share. And let's see how I do with that. Here we go. Whoops. Okay, oh, whoops, we're not quite done yet. There, can everyone see curry broccoli soup? Hello?
I can see.
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you, because I can't see anything but curry broccoli soup. So this is a very old recipe that my children's preschool teacher, for a Montessori teacher, made up, and very simple ingredients: chicken broth, curry powder, onion, and broccoli. And I always think of it in terms of, this is the healthiest thing I cook. I mean, it's like really there's no fat in it. There's, it's just vegetables with some chicken broth, and it's delicious and it freezes well. So it meets all my criteria. The thing is, you have to peel the broccoli stems. And that is what keeps me from making it frequently. And I don't know if you all have peeled a broccoli stem before, but I went to the store and they mostly had short stems, and you really want a long stem if you're gonna do this. So broccoli stems are actually more a more pleasing flavor, let's say, than the broccoli flowerets. So it's nice to have them in. So to peel a broccoli stem, you cut off, just a little bit of the end, and you can see it's got the skin, and then you kind of want to, you can see where I cut off the skin, and I actually needed to go in and cut up a little further. You need to kind of go along that line. And what happens is it just peels off. And this thick chunk just sort of peels away. It's actually a very satisfying thing to do, but you have to do so many of them. But that's how it just peels off that way. And you can see I've got this is what I took off, and it looks very, almost more like celery, whereas the skin here is smooth. So I thought, well, the grocery store didn't have great broccoli last night as I was trying to fix this. And it occurred to me, maybe I could use frozen broccoli. And so I went over to the frozen section to see if they had anything that included the stems. So I have the recipe here with, and it's not like you have cups. You don't have real measurements for this recipe. You just, it sort of gets as big as the pan you use or the pot. So you have a bunch of broccoli, you peel the stems and chop it into chunks, or you use the frozen broccoli cuts. You have a large onion, chicken broth, and I realized you could probably use vegetable broth if anybody has vegetarian friends. And then there's curry powder. And again, you do it to taste. And I don't use curry. This is like the only recipe I use curry in. So I'm not a good judge of it. So I started with like just 1/8 of a teaspoon at a time for it to build up. And the longer it cooks, it sort of gets a little bit stronger. So the other thing, when you start to cook, if you have fresh broccoli, you place the broccoli and chopped onion in the pot. And I added a bay leaf. Or what I did is so since I was using the frozen, I cooked the onion in the chicken broth with the bay leaf separately. And then when it was tender, I added the broccoli. I didn't want to overcook it. So I'm going to go ahead and instead of, it's such a simple recipe. You stir in the curry powder and you just simmer it. And I'd recommend reading the package it's probably like 6 minutes that it cooks. And so here's the recipe with the, and I'd never seen broccoli cuts before, but that was exactly what I needed because it had the stems. And I decided to actually use my food processor instead of the bullet that I don't know how many of you were on when I made pesto and found that the pesto worked much better in the food processor, which the recipe called for, rather than the bullet that was sitting on my counter. And I thought I could do a shortcut. Did not work. So I'm using the food processor, and that's the size pot I used. And this has I did this to show how long you would actually cook the broccoli once you added it to the vegetables. So it says, simmer for 6 to 8 minutes. You want it tender, but you don't want it to lose the bright green color. So this is the onions in the broth with the bay leaf. And I decided to add the bay leaf. Again, I did a program early on with the loofah. I have a cousin's wife who grows loofah, that's a sponge, and from her plants. And she also has a bay leaf tree. So twice a year I get fresh dried bay leaves. And so I need to use them as often as I can. So here's adding the curry powder, and I didn't have 1/8 of a teaspoon measuring spoon, so I just filled that halfway with the curry powder. And that's kind of what it looks like when you've added the frozen broccoli and it's almost done. I stuck a fork in it. That's how I usually tell if broccoli's done. And so the frozen broccoli had already been cooked, so it was really just heating it up. So as you can see, this is very simple. You want to make sure remove the bay leaf. You don't want to puree it. And I'm not really sure what the bay leaf added to the recipe, but I found that it's always good in making broths and soups and stews, and it just adds something nice that I can't identify. So here is so what I did is took a spoon and scooped out the vegetables without much broth. And then I spooned in some of the broth and then pureed it. And this was the first time. And because it's warm, I did let it cool. for probably 20 minutes. It was still warm, but you puree it once and then you have to open it. Otherwise, if you hit your little button to puree it a second time, it will kind of like the heat and the pressure will blow apart your equipment. So you don't want to do that. So I actually did not take a picture of the second time I pureed it, but I did each batch twice, and I probably made 2 batches. So this is what it looked like when I was done. It has a nice, pleasing green color, and it's kind of about the consistency of a pea soup. And the little brown container had the rest of the chicken broth. And I saved it, not sure if when I go to freeze what's left, I might make it a little bit thinner with the broth, just because I find when it's frozen and I heat it up again, sometimes it just needs a little more broth. So I just went ahead and saved it. And here's our lunch for today. And it's, it's delicious. It's light and you feel like you're just eating good things. So I would recommend you try this. And I would recommend the frozen broccoli. I really would. Flavor-wise, I don't know that there was that big of a difference compared to the ease factor. I mean, this was so much easier than what the other times I've made it in the last, 30 years. So, I mean, maybe everybody could do their own little test and see, but the convenience factor weighs in heavily with that. So I'm going to stop my screen share unless somebody has a question. And has anybody ever had broccoli soup?
Yes, but cream of broccoli.
You've had cream of broccoli. Well, that's one of the things about this. It tastes like it's cream of broccoli, but there's no dairy in it. And so that's another reason it freezes so well. And it's filling, but light, and I recommend everybody trying it. I often serve it, so you have onions and broccoli. You can throw a couple little goldfish, Parmesan goldfish are good on it, or some Cheez-Its. I just didn't have either of those things. So figure you can throw a couple of those on it and still have it in the category of a healthy dinner, healthy lunch. So everybody just like can't wait to go make broccoli curry soup.
Well, I won't eat curry, so that'll rule that out for me, though I would probably do my cream of broccoli again.
Well, who just said that?
Beth in New Jersey.
Oh, there you are. Actually, because it was so easy to do this time, I started thinking, what if I used, what other herbs or spices? Because like I said, this is the only recipe I use curry in. And so, I was thinking, what are the other spices that are often, or herbs that are paired with broccoli? So I'm actually going to do a little research into that, because the onion and broccoli combination makes a nice base that could be transformed easily into other flavors. So I may have a follow-up on that. So we'll see.
You could add some cauliflower into that with your broccoli, and you'd have cauliflower broccoli soup. And
I don't think I could do that.
Well, lots of people can.
Lots of people can. Actually, you're right. That would be the consistency.
No, I said
would be right.
I said they can't.
Oh, well, I don't know, they're making pizza crusts out of cauliflower these days. So, maybe, has anybody had that? A pizza crust, cauliflower pizza crust? Yeah? Margaret, you liked it?
Yeah, it was quite good. I mean, it just takes up the flavor of what all else you put on it.
That's
Kind
true.
of tastes otherwise.
That's true. I did have a sample once at Costco.
Yes, I on YouTube.
I miss those samples.
Yes.